Hey folks, welcome back to Tent Outdoors. My name's Alan from season 10 of Alone. Look what my kids got me for Christmas. They got me a custom-made knife from Broken Arrow Custom Knives out of Pincher Creek. And I thought, you know what a great opportunity to do a video on essential knife skills that you need to know for bushcraft and survival situations. What an awesome gift. Like, come on, stick around, it's starting right now. Folks, most survival and bushcraft knives have the top of the knife filed down at 90 degrees, creating quite a sharp edge on either side. And they do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can use it as a scraping tool and for striking your ferro rod and making a fire. Using the top part prevents you from dulling and ruining your blade. So we're going to angle the spine of our knife into the ferro rod, and with a push-pull motion, you're going to remove as much material as possible onto your tinder. So the next knife skill I want to talk about is something called batoning. And yes, you're simply using a baton to strike the back of your knife to either split wood or cut wood. And you can do a whole bunch of different things with it. So word of caution when you are going to baton with your knife, if you have a very small, kind of a thin bladed knife, you got to be really careful when you're batoning. That's why it's nice to have a bushcraft or survival knife with a very thick, large back that's not going to get damaged when you're batoning. So I've located a piece of wood that I want to use to break down into smaller pieces to get my fire going, but the outside is wet and it's covered in snow, but I'm going to use the batoning method to split it and access the dry wood inside. You can also use the batoning method to cut larger branches or even small trees down for use in shelter building or processing more firewood. So another great use for the batoning method is creating notches. So if you watched on the show, I used a pot hanger to hang my pot over the fire to boil my water, make teas, and cook my fish. Now I use this method to quickly and easily make a notch in the end of my stick, my pot hanger. Now ideally you should be using green wood for this, but I don't want to cut down a live tree or a live branch for the purpose of this video, because I'm a nice guy. You need to create a deep X in your piece of wood where you want the notch to go. You're going to slice downwards towards the cuts you just created with your baton to remove the remaining material so you'll have your notch. Once I've removed that material, I'm going to do another batoning stop cut. Just keep removing the material. So it only took me a couple of minutes using the batoning method to make this handy little notch to hang my pot over my fire to cook. So the next essential skill you should learn how to do with your bushcraft or survival knife is how to create feather sticks. Now earlier in the video I batoned kind of a wet, snowy piece of wood to access the dry wood inside. So I have a piece of that here, and I'm going to show you guys how to make feather sticks. Now feather sticks are for like stage 2. So once you get that precious flame either from your ferro rod or bow and drill fire, it's small, it needs to be nurtured. My precious! So if you have several feather sticks ready to take that flame and grow your fire larger to add phase 3, which would be a little bit larger pieces of wood. So the next essential skill that you should know how to perform with your bushcraft or survival knife is how to create a draw knife. Super simple. So you're just going to baton the end of your knife into a piece of wood that fits nicely into your hand to create something that looks like this. Okay, so the idea is to grab this as a handle and this as a handle, and you're going to draw the knife towards you. One of the most common uses for a draw knife in the bush is removing bark from trees to use in your shelters. Now, if I was just building an emergency overnight shelter, I definitely wouldn't worry about removing the bark. So Winia talked about this in season 6 of Alone. If you remember, she removed all the bark from all the logs that she used in her shelter. And number one, she talked about how it created a nice white environment inside, which helped her mental game. Just being in a nice bright white shelter helped her feel better and may have enabled her to last a little bit longer. Number two, it prevents rot and gets all the bugs out of the bark as well. Having the bark off the wood dries it out fairly quickly from having fires every day. And dry wood is a better insulator than wet wood. Wet wood tends to be a conductor of the cold. So that's another reason why she did it. She didn't make one of these though. If I remember correctly, she sharpened the back of her saw and used that as a draw knife. Folks, thanks so much for sticking around. I had a lot of fun making that video. Get out there and practice those skills, and we'll see you next time.